What's up, Blueroof Nation, and welcome back to A Year in Comics. I've I got a list of things that I was told that I forgot leading up to this year, which is 1939. So bear with me as I go back to 1934 and I just run down some things that I forgot. In 1934, I went over it briefly, but the guy who founded National Allied Publications. He was a retired cavalry officer, a major named Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson. So of course he founded in 1934. In 1935, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster created new characters for New Fun Comics #6. One character that they created under fake names, the fake names of Ledger and Ruth, was Dr. Occult. I don't know if you guys know who that was, but they created him in New Fun Comics #6. The creation of New Comics would go on to be successful once it was renamed to Adventure Comics, but it was, at the time, not so much, and they put Wheeler Nicholson in a lot of financial debt. Almost bankrupt, almost to the point of bankruptcy, which it would eventually bankrupt him a couple years later. 1936, Nicholson wanted to create Detective Comics, a third title under his little brands, but he couldn't afford it. Siegel and Shuster kept working at National Allied Publications, but no one seemed to want to buy Superman. Like I said last week, they had come up with a little Superman with like telekinetic powers, but they wanted the Man of Steel as we know him today, and no one would buy him. It was like an unsellable concept. But they did manage to create a story called Federal Man about an FBI agent named Steve Carson, and there was even a fan club about it where you'd have pins and little symbols and all that. And when I was reading up on it, it really reminded me of Make Marvel Mine, which Stan Lee did during the Marvel days. Decades later. Siegel and Shuster gave Dr. Occult a blue costume. This is in 36, I think I said, yeah. They gave him a blue and red costume with a red cape. And they made him fly and gave him super strength. They basically turned Dr. Occult into an early version of Superman. At the end of the year, an ad appeared that said Detective Comics would come out in December of 1936. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. There were some financial problems and it was pushed back, but that was kind of the first, like, oh, Detective Comics is coming. Also in this year, a man by the name of Martin Goodman. If you guys are fans of Marvel, you know who that is. He created Timely Comics. And this year, 1936, he created a pulp magazine called Kazar, who, if you're a Marvel fan, you know who he is, Savage Land and all that. This isn't him, but this is the character. This character is kind of based off Tarzan. Because Tarzan is public domain, but the name isn't. So if you make a Tarzan, you can make a Tarzan story, you just can't call him Tarzan. It's weird, I know, but it's legalese stuff. But so Martin Goodman made his own. It's Kazar, and the Kazar that we know now in the Savage Land is actually based off of this Kazar. So that was all 1936. The first Marvel stuff happened in 1936. I can't believe I forgot that. 37, Nicholson teamed up with his distributor Harry Donnerfield and a business advisor Jack Lebowski. I'm butchering that name, I'm so sorry. To create Detective Comics Inc. in order to create Detective Comics. So that's where we get DC Comics, because the company is like literally called Detective Comics Inc. By the end of the year, though, Nicholson had to sell his shares because he did go through bankruptcy, and his two partners bought the shares and even bought National Allied Publications and folded it into Detective Comics. In New Adventure Comics #12, the Federal Man story that Shuster and Siegel created. Well, they had one that was kind of like a futuristic tale that took place in the same universe. It took place in the year 3000 about an ace sleuth named Jor-El, which would go on to become the name of Superman's father. So you see, like, throughout their career, little sprinklings of what would become Superman. Also in 37, like I said, Detective Comics finally comes out, and unlike other titles that are just like, and so it was an anthology comic that had several stories and just like everything else. But unlike the other ones, which were all random, this one was all detective stories, which kind of gave it a singular purpose and made people like it more, actually. And by this point, Siegel and Shuster had given up on making Superman. They started stealing bits of his character and putting them in other stories because they figured no one would ever buy Superman and that it was a done deal. It brings us back to 1938, which I know we did last week, but bear with me. Like I said last week, Action Comics, Superman made his first appearance in Action Comics #1. In that title, we had Clark, Lois, Krypton, but it wasn't named Krypton. We had the Daily Star, which would eventually shift into the Daily Planet. It really changed comics forever, just like I said. Action Comics #2, while having a Superman story, and it didn't have him on the cover because DC Comics didn't really think that Superman would be anything other than what he was, just another character in an endless slew of characters. They didn't see what the future held for that character. Detective Comics #20 marked the first appearance of a masked superhero in comic book form. We had him in radio and TV with Green Hornet and the Lone Ranger and all that, but the first time in a comic book happened in Detective Comics #20 by writer-artist Jim Chambers, and the character was the Crimson Avenger. And he would stay with the title to the mid-40s, even being on the cover for most issues. Bill Finger and Bob Kane were already a team at this point. Now we're in the new year, 1939. I hope that backlog wasn't too much of a bother. I'm sorry. This is a really big year in comic books for both Marvel and DC. Jack, like Boltzwitz, the guy whose name I butchered, and again, I apologize. He partners with MC Gaines to open a second comic book company called All American Publishing. The two companies work together, trading characters and all this stuff. It's a very interesting thing, something you would never see happen today. The biggest news for DC, though, was in Detective Comics #27, the first appearance of Batman. And unlike Superman, he wasn't as fully formed, but he did have, like, he was Bruce Wayne, he was a rich guy, and all that. They didn't really do his origin story, but it's the birth of Batman. What else do you need? We also, a little later on, Gardner Fox would write a couple issues of Batman and give us things like the Batarang and stuff like that. This year, Superman also got his own title, which was unprecedented. There's never before been a character where he starts off in one book and then gets his own spin-off title about him. But Superman #1 came out this year, and in it they did another origin story. They introduced his adoptive parents. They explained how he started working at the Daily Star. All these little things, it all happened right there. Action Comics #13, Superman flies for the first time. And issue, I think, was it 18? He gets X-ray vision. Detective Comics #33, we finally get Batman's origin story. It's a big year for DC, especially for the first two, like their big two, you know? The only character they're really missing out of the big three is Wonder Woman. But for Batman and Superman, this was a really big year, 1939. But what's even bigger for comics as a whole, possibly, because Batman is huge for comics as a whole. But Martin Goodman, seeing the success of Action Comics #1, decided to open up his own comic book company. He called it Timely Comics. Now, why is this a big deal? Because Timely Comics would one day become Atlas Comics. What is Atlas Comics? Well, they would one day become Marvel Comics. Anywho, so he opened up his own comic book company, and the very first comic that they released, ironically enough, is called Marvel Comics #1. In this comic book, there was Bill Everett. If you don't know who Bill Everett is, you are not a comic book fan. He created the Submariner, among many other things. And this is the first appearance of Submariner. Namor the Submariner. It has his origin story in it and everything. Also in this issue, Carl Burgos created the Human Torch. And I'm not talking about Johnny Storm, the kid from the Fantastic Four. I'm talking about the android. He goes wreaks havoc, catches on fire, and nearly destroys the lab. And you have to try to take him down. They weren't heroes like Superman or Batman were heroes. They were more anti-heroes. Kind of, in this very first issue that Timely Comics produced, they set the stage for what Marvel Comics would go on to become under Stan Lee's reign. With these two characters. Also in that title, there's a masked hero named Angel with Wings, which would then, of course, inspire the character Angel on the X-Men. He was created by Paul Gustavson. I butchered that name as well. Also this year, Joe Simon was hired as editor-in-chief. And you don't know who Joe Simon is, well, stay with us in a couple years and we'll tell you all about Captain America. Also this year, a company called Fawcett Comics was founded. This company created a character called Captain Marvel. Shazam, as some people know him. Guy who who's a normal guy and then goes, Shazam! And then he turns into this big superhero. A big DC character. He wasn't actually created in DC Comics. He was created somewhere else and then brought in. DC had a tendency to buy a lot of smaller comic book companies and kind of use them to build their universe, whereas Marvel just kind of built their universe. Different approach, but they're both very successful, so hey. Success is success, who cares, right? Also this year, also this year, Lev Geeson Publications started producing comics, but they were like adult comics. So I'll let your imagination run wild with that one. So it wasn't just funny books that were being created. There was also more stuff that was geared towards a more grown-up, more adult audience. Also this year, a company, Quality Productions, was created. Then they created things like The Spirit and Plastic Man and other kind of lesser-known comic book characters that people today still know and love. Plastic Man, I don't know if you guys know, it's kind of like the DC version of Mr. Fantastic. But the last other non-Big Two company that came out this year was a company called the MLJ Magazines. MLJ Magazines, that's the name of the company. Who are they? Well, you know who they are. They eventually go on to become Archie. So, you know, Archie, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, all these different things. It all started there. I think CW is actually getting a Riverdale TV show based on Archie. So that also came out this year. So 1939, like I said, great big year. But yeah, 1939 was such a big hit, a big year. Superman got bigger, Batman was created, Submariner, Human Torch, Marvel Comics. 1939 is, well, 38 is the biggest milestone probably in comic book history. 39 is the second, boom, at you moment. You can't not love it, right? Yeah, so if I missed anything, let me know in the comments below, and I'll add it. It's kind of like if you guys listen to Kevin Smith's podcast, Edumacation, they do Eduma corrections. Well, I'll do that for this as well. If I missed something that was kind of like a main milestone thing, write in the comments and I'll throw it in. Till next time, have a week. Give us legends.